So far, we talked about comparing and contrasting, paying attention to differences. The second password, key, was using the actual translation with your students. What is number 3? What do you think? Well, number 3 is connected with sort of, in a sense, more translation, but again, at a different angle. Have a look at these 3 examples: cup, coarse, and dull. If I had a minute, I would ask you to sit down and translate these into Polish, which you would do no problem. And then I would ask you, for example, okay, which of these words mean matowy? And you will surely say dull. But my question is, did you write it down as one of the translations when I asked you to translate these 3 words? Certainly not. Why? Simply because what we remember, and this is what our students remember, is often the main meaning of the word. And my point here is that the more we work with the so-called multiple meanings of English, the better we actually are in speaking and using English as such. Now, multiple meanings, again, a lot of teachers tend to think that, oh, this is difficult, my students can't remember one meaning of the word, how come they might remember 2? Well, they must. Again, the sooner we begin, the better. So don't leave it until grade 3 because it's far too late for the students to grasp the whole concept of multiple meanings. Again, the more multiple meanings we deal with, the better we help our students with fluency. Our students need to become fluent readers of English, fluent listeners of English. And the more we work on multiple meanings, the quicker our students become fluent. I'll give you an example of a student of mine. This was a long time ago, but a very memorable example of a student who was reading a text and came across a sentence, he won a cup, and said, excuse me, what does it mean in English, wygrał filiżankę? It's not what he meant. He didn't understand that the word cup has more than one meaning. And this slowed him down because he wasn't taught, he wasn't exposed to multiple meanings of English words. If you remember about the complexity of English, multiple meanings is definitely part of this. English has more equivalents for one word than any other language in the world. Think about how many synonyms of the word walk do we have in English? Probably millions, you might expect. So that's why in Password we introduce multiple meanings as early as possible, again at a very basic sort of humane level, not to frighten the learner off. And in this case, for example, we work on the word pass. How many meanings of the word pass again do we have? Plenty. Do we want our students to be aware of them? Yes. Do we want our students to use them confidently? Not yet. But the language awareness is what we are aiming at for sure. As we move along, it's not just one word. We introduce more words that have multiple meanings. In this case, as you can see, course, note, board, class. Further on in the book, we go for more than 2, more than 4. This comes from a text about actually Bridget Jones, a fragment of the book, where I found quite a few interesting words that definitely have more than one meaning in English. And again, some of them are very simple, like date. Some of them are less simple, like, for example, crush. But the point is we want the students to be aware of these words, to make sure that then they can use them in the use of English, where, as you know, there is a task where students have to complete short dialogues with one word used in different meanings. So it's very important that we don't abandon this idea, that we carry on and develop our students' awareness of multiple meanings as such. So we carry on, and as I said, there's a lot of prompting, so the students have the words and they have the definitions before we actually get them to use these words in practice. Another activity you may want your students to consider is get them to, dictate these sentences and get your students to translate them into Polish. You will soon notice that your students will translate these sentences at a very basic level, not looking for any tricks or traps or anything. So he gave her a ring will probably be translated as dał jej pierścionek rather than zadzwonił do niej. But the more you do exercises of this kind, the more again your students' awareness of multiple meanings actually rises. And this is the key point to fluency and success in the exam as well. And the last idea, last but not least idea in this talk that I would like to focus on and concentrate on is word building. Again, not for the sheer idea of word building, but helping Polish students cope with the whole system of prefixes and suffixes in English, which again is different from ours, obviously, which causes a lot of problems and difficulty in the exam. Now, the point is, again, that the sooner we begin working on word formation, word building, the more fluency, again, we offer to our learners. Why? Because we help students unpack the meaning of certain lexical items. I'd like you to have a look at these two items. They're difficult in a sense because they're very long adjectives. Adjectives that, you know, at first glance look terribly difficult to our learners. And again, I'll give you a short anecdote. With the first one, unmanageable, I had a student who asked me about the meaning. What does it mean? And I rushed to my computer, put Google Images on, and I showed my student this picture. And I said, what do you think it means? And he said, oh, yes, I understand. Hair that is difficult to comb, yes? And I said, yes, fantastic. But how much thinking did I make my student do? Well, none, because he didn't know the word. I showed him the picture. He understood. He may remember, he may not. But I didn't teach him the fundamental skill of unpacking difficult words in English. So the next time a student asked me about this very difficult word, unputdownable, I didn't rush to my computer. I got the student to think. And I said, you understand book? He said, yes. I said, can you see a phrasal verb hidden inside this? He said, yes, put down. And I said, what does it mean, put down? He said, put down the book means just put it down. And I said, fine, can you see anything on the left and anything on the right? And he said, I can see un. I said, is this positive or negative? He said, negative. Able. I said, what do you think it means? Well, something you can't do. Okay, so unputdownable will mean what? And then the student, with my prompting, arrived at the right conclusion. And this is helping students unpack vocabulary. Okay. So, again, going back to Password, the course book, I have had the pleasure of writing. Again, draws students' attention to word families, prefixes, suffixes a lot. Have a look at this exercise. I believe that if we teach the students some important prefixes, prefixes which change the meaning, the students will then be able to unpack the meaning of the word as such. So if the students understand achieve, they will certainly understand underachieve, for example. If students understand, I don't know, paid, they will surely understand underpaid, for example, or unpaid. I don't want them to use these words confidently yet, but I want them to be aware of these words. And if I introduce this language awareness program as soon as grade 1, I stand more of a chance that my students will do well in the exam in grade 3. So we can't wait, there is no time. So you will find all kinds of exercises to practice word building. And these are some tasks which I often use to introduce word formation to my students. Tasks which seemingly may look difficult, but with time, obviously, students get used to them and enjoy practicing word formation in this way. Here's an example. I'd like you to consider these three words: friend, partner, and citizen. What do these words have in common? You will probably think and tell me they're all about people. And I said, well, yes, but this is not what I meant. I'd like you to think in terms of word formation, word building. What do these words have in common? So the students think, and there's usually one clever person who will say, I know, teacher, what they have in common is ship, friendship, partnership, citizenship. Oh, yes. So when they know the pattern and they used to this kind of an activity, next time you ask them, okay, have a look at these words, friend, they, love. What do you think they have in common? Students will remember and start searching in their mind for the right prefix or suffix. In this case, obviously, friendly, daily, lovely. And this is a way of making sure that your students are engaged in activities dealing with word formation. Okay, have a look at this one. Which one is the odd one out? Again, the first time you do it, your students might be puzzled, thinking, maybe child, because child is not an adult. But then there are friends who are not adults. So what is the key? Well, the key, in this case, which one is the odd one out? Obviously, childhood. Why? Because it has a different suffix. So the more you get your students to look at language like this, the more they become aware of word formation techniques as such. You may want to produce this, or you get your students to produce similar examples for their partners. I hope you find this convincing as an activity. Okay, one of the final activities I want to share with you is encouraging students to work at word families that we intend to introduce at a larger scale in levels 3 and obviously 4. We want the students to concentrate on word families, and one of the activities is for the students to create the longest possible sentence using different words created from the same root. In this case, compete. I could again give you a second to think of all possible words you can create from the root word compete, and then create the longest possible sentence. So the competitors competed in a very, for example, competitive competition competitively. Okay, and again the students will be engaged in this activity because it allows them to practice the relevant vocabulary, but also come up with silly sentences. Sometimes the sillier, the more memorable, as I'm sure you know from your own experience. So word formation is not just there to introduce more vocabulary, but also to make sure students' fluency in reading or listening improves as well, on top of the use of English skill, if I may call it in this way. Okay, obviously the same goes for any other words. From able, you can create, I don't know, disabled, ably, unable, enable, and again get the students to produce the longest possible sentence. You can play ideas galore, plenty for you to choose from, and your students to enjoy word building as such. Okay, to come to the end of this small talk, I want to reiterate why we need to work with our students, Polish students, in a slightly different way than perhaps we have done so far. How our students can be helped. What is the password, the key to success in Matura? Well, 3 aspects that I want to use to sum up this small talk. The first one is a genuine Polish student-friendly lexical and grammatical program. The one that draws students' attention to the differences and similarities between the two systems, and the one that pays attention to, that helps students pay attention to the problems that they have, the most confusing aspects of English, so that they get some more confidence, more precision, and more accuracy. The second aspect that I think I have managed to mention a few times is the so-called early start. We have to start as early as possible and get the students to work on more difficult aspects of English, but done so that the students gain their confidence step by step. So there is no deep end methodology in the book, but there are aspects of English that may seem more difficult, but they have been introduced in a very basic and student-friendly way. And finally, again I may say, last but not least, is making sure that we dig deeper. So we get the students to look at how to learn to translate ideas, not just individual words. So we help them dissect English in a better way, more perhaps profound way. Okay, so how to unlock this lock? I suggest that you have a look through our level 1 and level 2 and tell me if you like this particular program, if you find it genuine, useful to your learners. And when you do so, perhaps you'd like to have a go and use the book with pleasure, and let us know what you think about it. So it's your turn. Thank you very much. I hope to see you soon.